Tonight, over 800 Nigerians are back in Abuja after their successful evacuation from war-torn Sudan in 3 different flights on Sunday. Max airplane crash lands in Abuja after its tire bursts into flames shortly after taking off from Yola in Adamawa State. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP files contempt suit against the federal government over payment of life pensions to former governors. And United Nations nuclear watchdog warns of a severe nuclear accident could occur as Russia evacuates a town near contested Zaporizhzhia power plant. A total of 834 returned Nigerians to the country today through the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport from Sudan. Now, the evacuees came in 3 flights: Max Air, Taco Airlines, and Azman Air. Nigerians still stranded in Sudan have now been told to make their way to Port Sudan, where Nigeria-bound flights are waiting as evacuation from Aswan in Egypt have officially ended. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
The Pilgrims Terminal of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, is gradually filling up with multiple agencies getting ready for the return of over 800 evacuees from Sudan.
We're expecting people, particularly from Egypt, from the Aswan border. These are people that have been there for a while, and we had issues with clearance from the Egyptian government. We're glad that today we'll be evacuating everybody from that axis.
This woman, Hajia Asmal Yerima, narrates how painful it's been watching the news of the war in Sudan, knowing that her twin sons studying medicine and architecture were there. They're expected among the returnees today.
I was tense. At a point, I wake up in the night, going up and down in my room. When I remember there's God, I go back to on my knees, take my forehead on the ground. I tell the Almighty Allah, I know that Almighty Allah will save all the children, not just my children.
The planes land at the international wing of the airport, and the returnees are transported by bus to the Pilgrim Terminal, where the media were restricted to. Max Air, conveying 410 Nigerian returnees from Aswan, Egypt, arrives at 10:30 a.m., while Taco Air, with 102 Nigerian returnees from Port Sudan, arrives at 12:32 p.m. Azman Air, conveying 322 Aswan returnees, rounds up the returnees expected this Sunday, arriving at 12:40 p.m. Nigeria's humanitarian ministry welcomes the returnees and enumerates their plans for them.
You are going to be given some packs, what we call the Dignity Pack. In that pack, you have several things that you need immediately. We are also going to give you 100,000 naira per person from Dangote Foundation. Can you all say thank you to Dangote? Thank you very much. MTN Foundation is going to give you a pack, a program, what do they call it, a SIM card that has 25,000 naira in it, worth of credit, and 1.5 gigabytes of data, so that you can communicate with your families.
The returnees begin by filling out their returning registration forms and processing for their final journey to their respective homes, much to the delight of Hajia Asmal Yerima, who is finally reunited with her twin boys. The boys have some suggestions for the Nigerian government.
It's been tough, but inshallah we are here. Alhamdulillah, but the journey was very, very hard on us. The process needs to be fast, After coming, they need to have a plan, target and budget.
This arduous process has been one fraught with a lot of controversy, but the great news is a lot of the Nigerians who are in war-torn Sudan, who were in war-torn Sudan, have been returned safely back to Nigeria. And we're hearing from the government officials today that the focus is going to be on Nigerians who can make their way to Port Sudan so they can be evacuated back to Nigeria safely. No more evacuees at the Aswan region in Egypt, and that's what we're hearing today. But these returnees here excited to be back home, very tired, but looking forward to a future where their education probably will be continued through some kind of collaboration between the Sudanese government and the Nigerian government. From the Pilgrim Terminal of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, an aircraft belonging to Max Air carrying 143 adult passengers and an infant from Yola in Adamawa State has crash-landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Confirming the incident in a statement, the management of Max Air says the accident occurred after the aircraft experienced 2 burst tires on landing in Abuja. However, the emergency response team quickly responded and contained the situation. All passengers and crew on board of the aircraft are said to be safe. Some passengers who gave their experiences or who shared their experiences on the accident, including a former president of the Nigerian Medical Association, Dr. Mike Ogirima, said the tires of the aircraft burst after it took off in Yola. Now to politics. As the countdown to the inauguration of a new president continues, permutations on the leadership of the 10th National Assembly is one that has kept the political class quite busy. Starting with a coalition of newly elected members of the House of Representatives who are advocating the need to jettison zoning and vote in principal officers of the 10th Assembly based on competence and capacity to deliver. The group, which has its members drawn from the All Progressives Congress, APC, the New Nigeria People's Party, the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and the Labour Party, stated this at a meeting with elected members from the South-South Zone in Abuja. In a related development, youth from the North-Central Zone of the country are appealing to the 10th Assembly to elect a member from the zone as its Speaker.
Lobbying for the next Speaker of the House of Representatives continued to intensify ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. At this meeting in Abuja, some newly elected members of the House of Representatives under the aegis of New Vision are lobbying members from the South to elect the current chairman, House Committee on Appropriation, as the Speaker of the 10th Assembly. The meeting, which has members drawn from 4 political parties, including the PDP, Labour Party, APC, and the New Nigeria People's Party, believes strongly that they will not be bound by the zoning arrangement of any political party.
We have been hearing some rumors of zoning and all of that. But those of us in the National Assembly, if you know, the National Assembly is an entity on its own. It's independent. Those of us in the National Assembly want to support a speaker who is our own, a speaker who will defend democracy, a speaker who will protect the interests of members, a speaker who will help us deliver on the dividends of democracy. So whatever they decide cannot be binding on us.
What we are thinking is the credibility of the personality that is supposed to be the Speaker of the 10th Assembly, who can be more productive and that can bring unity, cohesion and understanding for us to be able to have a credible and purposeful leadership that will work together with the executive with the view to make Nigeria better.
In a similar development, youth from the North Central region are asking that the next Speaker of the House of Representatives should come from the North Central.
The Middle Belt zone in Nigeria has never, since democracy had speakership. We wish to implore all concerned stakeholders, particularly members-elect of the House of Representatives, to support Honorable Idris Wase. This personality has all it takes by experience, by knowledge, by virtue of service.
Over 60% of members in the incoming House of Representatives are first-timers. This number, no doubt, has the capacity to decide the fate of the next Speaker of the House of Representatives.
And it's different strokes for different folks. As a body that goes by the name Forum of North Central former House of Representatives members want the Speaker's position to be zoned to the North Central zone due to the contribution of the zone to the emergence of the President-elect in the last presidential election. Addressing the press conference in Abuja, the chairman of the forum, Mr. Idris Yakubu, notes that the zone has experienced serving and returning members who are fit for the number 4 position.
We would therefore demand that while the position of the Senate President can be given to the South for religious balancing and the Northwest, the Deputy Senate President, that the North Center must be given its due share in the leadership of the 10th National Assembly. We ask that since the North Center gave the President-elect the highest percentage number of votes apart from the Southwest, that it should be given the speakership of the 10th Assembly. This should come as the fair and just thing to do, since the Don has never occupied the seat of Speaker since the return of democracy in 1999, while the Northwest has held it for 12 good years. We know that the President-elect, having fought for the return of democracy to Nigeria and served as a senator and state governor, is a thorough Democrat. Hence, it befalls on him to take steps that will preserve and deepen our democracy by ensuring inclusiveness in his administration. The North Central can boast of an array of experienced and ranking members who, when given the opportunity, can preside excellently over the House of Representatives and ensure quality legislation for the good governance of Nigeria.
Well, the Southeast Senate caucus is not about to be left behind in the negotiations, as the group is advising the President-elect Senator Bola Tinubu to be conscious of the grave implications of zoning and endorsing a candidate for the position of Senate President from the South-South. The advice is contained in a communique by the caucus after a meeting in Abuja. Reading the communique to journalists after the meeting, Senator Ifeanyi Ubah says the lawmakers are imploring the President-elect to be sensitive to the times in Nigeria and ensure the country continues to thrive on the path of equity, unity, and fairness.
With the sidelining of the Southeast from producing the presidential candidates of the major political parties before the general election, the only means through which the zone can be compensated and given a sense of belonging is for the zone to produce the next Senate President, as this will restore confidence to the people from the Southeast geopolitical zone. The APC must rise above primordial and political interest and shun the winners-take-all syndrome and pursue ethno-religious inclusivity and a strong, virile, united, progressive, prosperous, equitable, and just democratic nation. Mr. President-elect, how would an average Igbo man feel after seeing evidence of total discrimination? The Southeast have been denied the chance to produce the president of Nigeria since 1966. The South-South has produced president for 6 years and also had deputy Senate president in the outgoing administration. The only zone in the South that has not been favored is the Southeast. The outcry of marginalization of the Southeast and the entire Igbo should be addressed by the incoming administration rather than aggravating it.
Still on the leadership of the 10th Assembly, a northern-based group, Youth Progressive Initiative, has thrown its weight behind the South-South for the position of Senate President in what the group describes as being in the interest of equity, fairness, and national unity. Specifically, the group is backing the candidacy of former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Senator Godswill Akpabio, as the next Senate President, and the senator representing Kano, Barau Jibrin, as the Deputy Senate President. At a press conference in Kaduna, the chairman of the Youth Progressive Initiative, Usman Aliyu, notes that allowing the South-South zone to produce the next Senate President will give every part of the country a sense of belonging and ensure balance of power.
Nigeria belongs to everybody. And we have 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. Whereas the president-elect comes from the southwest region of Nigeria. The vice president-elect comes from the northeast region of this country. So if you watch the program, the commissioning of the roads 2 or 3 days back, the president-elect himself ensured Nigerians that his administration is going to be on equity fairness, and justice. So we want every region of this country to have sense of belonging in the leadership of the National Assembly and the executive. Whereas the president and the vice president-elect come from the two geopolitical zones of Nigeria, we believe it will be good, this Senate presidency, to shift to the south-south of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, whereas the deputy Senate president should zone to the northwest zone of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
In part two, after the break, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP files contempt suit against the federal government over payment of life pensions to former governors. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Over 800 Nigerians are back in Abuja after their successful evacuation from war-torn Sudan in 3 different flights on Sunday. Max airplane crash lands in Abuja after its tire bursts into flames shortly after taking off from Yola in Adamawa State. Social Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP files contempt suit against the federal government over payment of life pensions to former governors. And United Nations nuclear watchdog warns a severe nuclear accident could occur as Russia evacuates a town near contested Zaporizhzhia power plant. About 30 days, Nigerians will indeed know the names and, of course, faces of those who will lead the 10th National Assembly. Tonight, our attention is on the permutations and combinations in the journey to become the next president of the Senate. Babajide Ogunsoro, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share some insight. Great to have you on the News at 10, Babajide, once again.
As always, mine, Ayo.
All right, so is there any data or a science, really, that points to how the next Senate president will be chosen?
So again, it all depends. I'd like to just start from a slightly different perspective, and that's, keep your ears to this, Ayo. Peter and Paul, they're a group, but Peter has his identity, Paul has his identity. Nigeria as well, based on the evidence we've seen, is a group, but northern Nigeria has its identity. And southern Nigeria has its identity like Peter and Paul. And so when you talk about the data and the science of this, here's what it looks like. It looks like a game of cards. Let's keep this half House of Representative discussion to next week. We'll talk about this half. What does our history show? It shows a very simple trend. When the president comes from the north, the vice president comes from the south, and the Senate president comes from the north. If the president comes from the south, the vice president comes from the north, the Senate president comes from the south. So let's take a look at how this trend has been, Ayo, since 1999, this north-south-north trend. And if we take a look at the facts since 1999, we'll look at how many Senate presidents we had during President Obasanjo's term. And again, the north-south trend continues. So President Obasanjo from the south, his vice from the north, and all the 5 Senate presidents that served under President Obasanjo, all were from Abia State, all were from the southeast region in the south. Let's look at Umar Yar'Adua, president from the north, vice from the south, and David Mark from the north. The only exception was when David Mark was re-elected, when Goodluck Jonathan was from the south, and David Mark was from the north. Prior to then, the history has been steady. In simple terms, 8 out of 9 times, when the president comes from the north, the Senate president comes from the north. 8 out of 9 times, when the president comes from the south, the Senate president comes from the South. The only exception happened once, and that was David Mark, when David Mark was Senate president, even though Goodluck Jonathan was from the South. So in simple terms, the first fact shows that there's an 89% probability, you might want to call it an occurrence, that the next Senate president will be from the South. So that is the first fact. Now, the second fact is, if we're to look at our history and understand that based on history, the Senate president is likely to come from the South, the next question is, which of the regions in the South will this president come from? South-South, Southwest, South-South, or Southeast? Again, history shows that never has the Senate president come from the same zone as the president. So clearly, the Southwest, based on history, wouldn't likely get the Senate president. So we're focusing now our focus will now be on the South-South region and the Southeast region. And again, the third fact, going by history, no candidate from the opposition party has become Senate president. So what it simply means is our attention will be on who are the APC senators in the South-South and the Southeast. And the fact shows that we have 13 senators. So if this were a game of poker, like it has always shown to be, the summary is we're expecting that the next Senate president will come from the South region, number one. We're also expecting that because the president is from the Southwest, the Senate president is not likely going to come from the Southwest. We're going to be left with a choice between the 7 APC senators in the South-South or among the 6 APC senators in the Southeast. Does that mean none of the senators in APC from the Northern region could become the Senate president? That doesn't mean that. What it means is, going by history, we have a significantly higher chance that the next Senate president will be among the 13 senators that are within these 2 southern regions.
Well, now, which brings me to the issue of the opposition parties. You clearly talked about it a while ago while you spoke, but what will they be bringing to the table? I mean, in terms of being able to influence policies by the Senate, how would they play out?
It's going to be a really interesting 10th Senate. We have 7 political parties in the 10th Senate, but let's quickly take a look at the overview of what exactly would influence the sort of decisions and policies and the numbers we're going to be seeing in the Senate, sort of bills that we're going to be looking at. And if we take a look at the numbers in front of us, here's the summary. Let's start with the North Central region. The North Central region, the APC is strong. They have the majority. Out of 19 senators, if you look at the first row, 19 senators in the region, the APC has the majority, 11 senators. Look at the Northeast. Out of the 18 senators in the Northeast, the APC has the majority, more than half, 10 senators. Now look at the Northwest. A lot of interesting things will be happening in the Northwest. Out of the 21 senators, the APC only has 10. In simple terms, APC does not have a majority in the Northwest. The opposition parties, PDP, NNPP, have a major say about the sort of activities that will be going on in the Northwest. Now let's look at the Southern region. Southwest, 18 senators overall in the Southwest. The APC controls the Southwest in the Senate, 15 senators. The Southeast, out of the 15 Senate seats in the Southeast, the APC only controls 6. In simple terms, the opposition still controls the Southeast, and the same thing goes with the South-South. Out of 18 senators, the APC only has 7 senators out of the 18. Summary is 6 zones, APC controlling 3 zones, has the majority of Senate seats in 3 zones, which is the North Central, the Northeast, and the Southwest, and the opposition parties will play a big role in decisions in the Northwest, Southeast, and South-South.
And finally, how likely are we to see senators jump ship, at the 10th National Assembly? You hear of things, the normal saying, carpet crossing. How is that going to play out?
Very likely.
Are we going to see a large movement of
Very
senators?
likely. The judges will also, the justice system will also have to determine that. But let's look at the zones that we are most likely going to see a lot of heat, a lot of areas where the APC might want to dominate. And if you take a look at the overall, looking at which zones that are we likely to see significant change, 3 zones come up very important. The first is, let's start with the Southwest. We see the APC has 15 senators in the Southwest, only 3 available Senate seats that they don't have. So we are not likely to see a major change in the Southwest. Where we feel that there'll be a lot of drama going forward, look at the South-South. APC has 7 senators in the South-South, 11 other seats belong to the opposition party. So the South-South, we're likely to see a lot of drama going on. Let's look at the Southeast as well. The APC has 6 senators, opposition has 9 Senate seats. We're likely to see a lot of drama in the Southeast. And above all, why this is interesting is the APC only has 59 senatorial seats, opposition 50. Going into this election, the APC had more seats. They had 63. So we are in a situation where the APC in this 10th assembly, in the 10th Senate, are not as strong as they were when the 9th Senate was ending. So in the days ahead, it will be interesting to find out what will happen to APC's 59 senators. What will happen to the 50 Senate seats the opposition holds? Ayo, don't forget, like Peter and Paul, is Nigeria 1 or 2?
Well, definitely leave it at that. And I'm sure next week we will be taking a look at the race for the seats, the House of Representatives, for those who will be taking over there in the lower legislative chamber. Thank you so much again, Babajide Gusau, for your thoughts on the News at 10. It's official. The long-awaited Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal is now set to begin hearing of the petitions challenging the declaration of the All Progressives Congress candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, as the president-elect. The expected legal battle by the presidential candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and some other parties disputing the outcome of this year's presidential poll will commence from May the 8th. This next report takes a look at the grounds of the candidates and the prayers they are asking the court to grant.
The presidential election held on February 25, 2023 is one that has generated several reactions, especially against the background of the provision of the Electoral Act 2022. The candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and the Action Alliance rejected the outcome of the exercise as declared by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC.
Thank you.
Their prayers are quite similar. Mr. Peter Obi and the Labour Party is praying the court for the following. The tribunal should cancel the election and compel INEC to conduct a fresh one, at which time President-elect Tinubu, elect Shatima, and the APC will not participate. The tribunal should declare that President-elect Tinubu was not duly elected by a majority of the lawful votes cast during the election. The tribunal should order INEC to retrieve the certificate of return issued to President-elect Tinubu and issue a fresh one to Mr. Peter Obi. The petitioners asserted that the election was marred by rigging and manipulations, and INEC violated its own regulations when it announced the results when at the time of the announcement, the total polling unit results had yet to be fully scanned, uploaded, and transmitted electronically as required by the Electoral Act. Mr. Peter Obi particularly says President-elect Tinubu was not qualified to contest at the time of the election. They also prayed the tribunal to declare that President-elect Tinubu was not duly elected by a majority of the lawful votes cast at the election. Just like Mr. Peter Obi, Mr. Atiku Abubakar and the PDP are asking the tribunal to declare him winner of the presidential election, or alternatively order a rerun between him, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, and the president-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. In the alternative, he wants the entire election nullified and a fresh one conducted. The petition also says that President-elect Tinubu was not duly elected by a majority of lawful votes cast at the election, and at the time of the election, he was not qualified to contest the election. They also pray in the court for the following: determining that the president-elect was not duly elected by the majority of lawful votes cast in the election, and therefore the declaration and return of him by INEC as the winner of the presidential election is unlawful, wrong, unconstitutional, and of no effect whatsoever. Determining that the return of President-elect Tinubu by INEC was unlawful, having not satisfied the requirement of the Electoral Act 2022 and the 1999 Constitution as amended, which mandatorily requires that he scores nothing less than 1/4, 25% of the lawful votes cast at the election in at least 2/3 of all the states in the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. Determining that President-elect Tinubu was, at the time of the election, not qualified to contest the said election. Determining that Mr. Atiku Abubakar, having scored the majority of lawful votes cast at the presidential election, be returned as the winner of the said election and be sworn in as the duly elected President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In the alternative, however, they're asking the court for an order directing INEC to conduct a second election, a runoff, between President-elect Tinubu and Mr. Atiku Abubakar. In a further alternative, that the election to the office of the President of Nigeria held on 25th February 2023 be nullified and a fresh election rerun be ordered. However, the All Progressives Congress, in its replies, asked the Presidential Election Petition Court to dismiss the petitions filed by the opposition parties. It described the petition filed by Mr. Atiku Abubakar victory as a gross abuse of court process. Responding to Mr. Obi's petition in a preliminary objection, President-elect Tinubu filed alongside his Vice President-elect. They maintain that the Labour Party's candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, lacked the right to challenge the election victory. He argued that Mr. Peter Obi was not validly nominated to contest the presidential election, in line with the mandatory provisions of Section 77, Subsection 2 and Subsection 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. He insists that Mr. Peter Obi's name was not found in the register of members of the Labour Party, noting that he defected to the party from the PDP less than 30 days before the primary election that produced him as a presidential candidate was conducted. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is asking the tribunal to dismiss or strike out the petitions filed by Mr. Peter Obi and Mr. Atiku Abubakar. INEC says the relief sought by Mr. Peter Obi and his party are not grantable as they were grossly incompetent, abusive, vague, non-specific, ambiguous, and academic. The Electoral Commission also says Mr. Atiku Abubakar did not meet the constitutional requirements to be declared winner of the election. INEC adds that the election was conducted in substantial compliance with Electoral Act 2022 and was not marred by any corrupt practices. It argues that a candidate must not secure 25% of votes in the FCT to be declared the winner. As the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal gets ready to begin proceedings, members of the panel are charged to uphold its tenets of integrity, professionalism, and the rule of law.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has filed a contempt suit against the federal government and the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, for failing to recover over 40 billion naira life pensions from former governors who are serving as lawmakers and ministers. Justice Oluremi Oguntoyibo of the Federal High Court, Lagos, had in November 2019 ordered the federal government to recover life pensions collected by former governors serving as ministers and members of the National Assembly. Justice Oguntoyibo also directed Mr. Malami to challenge the legality of states' life pension laws permitting former governors and other ex-public officials to collect such pensions. However, the federal government has failed to implement the judgment. SERAP moved to enforce the judgment on Friday, May the 5th, by filing Form 48 contempt suit at the Federal High Court, Lagos. In a statement dated May the 7th this year, the organization said it's unacceptable to take the court, which is the guardian of justice in the country, for a ride. Those who have just been elected and will be taking over power at the end of this month at various levels of government must carry out a comprehensive review of the strategy linking security to economic development. That's the view of security and risk management consultant Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya. Setting out an agenda for the incoming administration in this area, he told Channels Television's Ladia Keredulwale on our election issues and personalities tracking program Roadmap 2023 that what breeds insecurity is similar to what holds back economic growth and development.
You cannot achieve economic prosperity without security. So we must look at what are the drivers of insecurity. Have those frank conversations, look for the approach that is sensible, that is local, and then begin to drive it. Okay, so that is how you begin to fix some of these issues going forward, Ladi. And for me, I do hope that without sounding immodest, that also that the politicians that we bring into power, we can begin to take them through the National Institute for Policy in Kuru, to take them on a training, mandatory training on issues of national interest, national defense, and national security. Again, I would say that national security defined this time as the security of the Nigerian state. and its people. Because there are points where you have to, take something on your chin just for national interest. And there are times when you do not allow sabotage because of national interest. There are times when you look at the essentials of backward integration of the things you import the most and insisting in some bilateral deals to protect your national interests. Because having your industries working will help your people gain meaningful employment, which will take off some people off the streets. And with economic prosperity, people tend to live a more sensible life within the construct of society. So we can begin to view our social contracts with the people differently, our contracts with our bilateral partners differently, when people who have the authority to act on our behalf have a better sense of place in our pursuit for a prosperous and for a more rewarding Nigeria for everybody.
For the full interview with Mr. Onyekachi Adekoya, do watch Roadmap 2023 tomorrow, Monday, that's May the 8th, at 9 p.m., right here on Channels Television. To security now, the Federal Capital Territory Police Command says it has rescued 58 persons from various communities bordering the FCT, including a kidnapper's hideout located at Udulu Forest in Gegu local government area of Kogi State, bordering Sadana Forest in Nasarawa State. The FCT Police Public Relations Officer, Mrs. Josephine Ade, who confirmed this in a statement on Sunday, that's today, says the rescue operation involved a joint team of security agencies, including vigilantes and hunters from various local communities. She says on site in the security team, the kidnappers opened fire on the team and the gun duel ensued. However, they were overpowered and escaped with various degrees of bullet injuries, leaving behind their victims. While one of the hostages, named Tama Jonathan, is said to have died as a result of the injuries sustained during the operation, 58 of the rescued victims are being stabilized in the hospital. And according to the police, they would be reunited with their families soon. Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the NDLEA, have reportedly seized a total of 8,852 kilograms of Canadian loud, that's an imported synthetic strain of cannabis at the Eleko Beach Road in Lekki area of Lagos. According to the NDLEA, the breakthrough came after a 30-minute gunfight with armed men who were escorting the consignment loaded in 2 long trucks. The NDLEA says operatives are already on the trail of the drug lord who shipped the illicit consignment into the country. On the same day, NDLEA operatives also intercepted a Toyota Sienna vehicle driven by one Mokala Idowu, conveying 88.3 kilograms of skunk on the Otedola Bridge, Ikeja area of Lagos, while another suspect, Joseph Friday, was arrested on Saturday, May the 6th, at Iyanora, Lagos, with 58.7 kilograms of cannabis sativa concealed inside his Toyota Camry car. The operatives also busted a mini factory where a suspect, Bakari Taufik, was producing scooches around the Safari Onikulobo in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. In Adamawa State, 2 suspects, Sahabi Mohammed and Bala Ali Umar, were arrested with various drugs, including tablets of tramadol, cannabis sativa, formalin at Angua Laka Newman local government area. In Edo, NDLEA operatives intercepted a bus conveying 13,000 pills of tramadol and diazepam along Ewohimi Road. Similarly, another suspect, Ahmed Rafiu, was arrested with 84 blocks of compressed cannabis weighing 43.200 kilograms by operatives in Kogi State, while 381.1 kilograms of the same substance was recovered from 3 suspects traveling in a Sienna bus in Anambra State. NDLEA officers attached to courier firms intercepted blocks of compressed brown methamphetamine packaged as soap bars weighing 1.54 kilograms going to Australia. Residents of flood-prone areas in parts of River State in Nigeria's south-south are calling on relevant authorities for proactive measures in cushioning the adverse effects of flooding as the rainy season sets in. Residents from different local government areas of the state are worried over an imminent threat to lives and property following the prediction released by the Nigeria Meteorological Agency of heavy rainfall in coastal zones of the south-south states, which also includes rivers.
A prediction from the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET, is putting some coastal zones in the country on flood alert. And the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, wants residents of the listed areas and the government to use the information to their advantage. In Rivers State, 13 local governments are forecasted to be affected by heavy flooding. Here in Obiapo, one of the local government areas that gets flooded yearly, residents are bracing up for what is coming as they share their experiences of the past.
Immediately you are coming from Obrikure houses. There is a culvert there. That culvert, the capacity is not capable of carrying the kind of flood that comes there. So during rainy season, the water level goes high and covers the road entirely.
The issue of flooding here is a very terrible thing. It keeps us worried, especially we that usually pass with our cars. Even those passing with their barefoot, it gives them worry because everywhere will be flooded. In fact, it's an alarming rate.
Part of the areas within the Port Harcourt city that is usually affected by flooding is the Odili Road axis, a highbrow neighborhood, but gets really ugly for residents when it rains.
When it floods, you see our shop, water will full inside. Even the supermarkets, water will full inside. Sometimes our cement gets spoiled. So we don't know. We really want government to come and do something about it.
Bertha Richard, a mother of 6 children, survives on famine in one of the communities submerged in 2022 flooding. She recounts our losses.
The flood affect my farm them well. Up to 16 farm where I get, we only harvest 6. Before we know, the other ones, because of the flood cover road finish, we no fit pass, go collect our crops then.
In another local government area, Pastor Chimeze Obuzo says the church is yet to recover from the losses it incurred during last year's flooding.
What we lost here, especially our electronics and furniture, they are over 12 million. We are trying to take some measures to fill some of these places, especially trying to meet the direction of the water.
Being that the government has failed us, just strict to say, government has failed us. So we have to take the bull by the horn. It is for us to take proactive measures. What are these proactive measures? Constantly remove the debris to deepen the channel.
Some of the things we are doing is to ensure that we build a camp, build a relief camp for the people, buy foams, mattresses, and some food items.
The 2022 flood ravaged different cities across the country with varying degrees of damages. These residents are calling for a quick intervention and approach to avoid a repeat of the disaster.
President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to inaugurate the Dangote refinery, which is the world's largest single-train refinery, on May the 22nd this year. Special Assistant to the President on Digital Communications, Bashir Ahmad, announced this development in a tweet on his official handle on Sunday. The tweet reads, "Efforts by the federal government to make Nigeria self-sufficient in local refining of crude oil to save the scarce foreign exchange used in the importation of petroleum products have received a boost as the 650,000 barrels per day Dangote refinery, the world's largest single-train refinery, is set for inauguration on May 22nd, 2023 by President Muhammadu Buhari. The refinery is expected to process a variety of light and medium grades of crude to produce Euro V quality clean fuels, including gasoline and diesel, as well as jet fuel and polypropylene. Now, the Dangote refinery's cost grew to $19 billion from the initial estimates of between $12 billion and $14 billion after years of delays. The executive director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, Mr. Ezra Yakusak, announced plans to set up cashew processing centers across the country. Now, the intervention, according to the NEPC boss, targets value or addition for cashew nut exports, which will in turn create jobs and boost foreign exchange earnings for the government. Mr. Yakusak was speaking at a meeting with cashew farmers in Ogbomoso local government area of Oyo State.
The Minister of Youth and Sports Development and Executive Director of the Nigeria Export Promotion Council arrive at Ogbomosho community in Oyo State to meet with cashew farmers. Nigeria is the fourth leading producer of raw cashew nuts in Africa, with about 19 producing states. According to statistical data obtained from the pre-shipment inspection agents, raw cashew nut is the fifth leading non-oil exportable product in Nigeria in the 2022 Non-Oil Performance Report. In the report, Nigeria exported 315,677 million metric tons of raw cashew nuts worth $252 million. In spite of the huge contribution to the economy, the potential in the sector remains untapped.
To add value, the cashew need to be processed because we discourage the export of raw cashew nut. Instead, we encourage the export of value-added products. We've agreed to make some intervention on cashew, and that intervention is to see how we can set up cashew processing centers so that we can add that value that is required.
Nigeria's cashew export trade is largely hampered by non-adherence to food safety standards, lack of traceability, low yield per hectare, poor farming practices, aging trees, and lack of processing, amongst others. The Minister of Youth and Sports Development, who is also a cashew farmer, is optimistic that adding value before export remains a sure way to job creation.
When I look around, I see a lot of young people. And that, for me, is exciting. Why? When you develop the value chain of cashew, a lot of young people can get employed. In fact, they can become rich. The same wealth we got from cocoa, you can get from cashew.
Cashew farmers, on their part, highlight some concerns and call for more support to boost production and export of the product.
We will still be glad if the government help us to expand our farms. And we will be glad, sir. Farmers are doing everything possible to produce. We still need to produce more. Our research revealed that we have the land to produce quality cashew, but there's no help.
Cashew nuts ranks 5th on the list of the top 10 products exported in the first quarter of 2023, while accounting for 5.2% of Nigeria's non-oil export portfolio.
And now to the arts. Visual Dialogue is a group exhibition by some members of the Female Artists Association of Nigeria in Lagos. The female artists create images that address issues they are passionate about. We see them on Art Review tonight.
Engaging works of art have been revealed as the Female Artists Association of Nigeria presents Visual Dialogues, an exhibition which is a platform to support this group of artists in Lagos.
In this exhibition, we have a combination of different expression of works. We have works in mixed media, we have oil on canvas, we have acrylic on canvas, we also have crafts, and which is some of the stuff that you can see that I made today.
It's all about empowerment for women. It's strictly for empowering the women. It's a platform. Our organization is giving them a platform to exhibit so they can sell and make money. So basically, what we have here are sellable arts, beautiful artworks made by different women from with different media.
This empowerment move has images in all shapes and sizes, done with different types of objects from the visual to the unconventional, adds glamour to the exhibition space, but encourages potential pickers to find what suits their pockets.
My work, the title is Impact. Impact, I-M-P-A-C-T. Now, if you look at my work, you can see the face of a lady and then part of the shoulders. It's not just the face of the lady or the shoulders, but there are lines there on the work. Those lines show the marks that we make while we're living on Earth. Okay, I use black and white for that drawing because for me, that's the basic color of humanity. We're all black and white. And then maybe with a little shade of other colors. But the basic color of every humanity, be you who, is black and white. And we have almost the same experiences. As we live life, we have experiences. These experiences, we learn from them. We don't just learn from them, we also use them to teach other people around us. And these are the impacts that we make as we live our life. Now, my question is, the impact you're making, is it positive or negative?
The artists use their distinct media to discuss these issues and send messages to the society by having a visual dialogue.
Russia has sparked a mad panic as it evacuated a town near the contested Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. According to a Ukrainian official, Russia has told people to leave 18 settlements in the Zaporizhzhia region, including Enrodar near the plant, ahead of Kiev's anticipated offensive. The Ukrainian mayor of Melitopol, Ivan Fedorov, said there were 5-hour waits as thousands of cars left. 7 people have been killed in the U.S. state of Texas after a car struck a group at a bus stop close to a shelter for the homeless and migrants. The incident, which happened on Sunday in the city of Brownsville near the Mexican border at about 8:30 a.m. local time, left at least 6 other people critically injured. The driver has been arrested and charged. Started from the home front and talk football. When Nigeria Premier Football League Group A leaders Bendel Insurance have extended their unbeaten run to 17 games as the Benin Arsenal played a 1-1 draw against Shooting Stars of Ibadan at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. Plateau United suffered their first home defeat in 2 years under coach Fidelis Ilechukwu to visiting Remo Stars at the new Jos Stadium. Akwa United and Enyimba enjoyed comfortable home wins in Group A. It was no good news for fans of Nasarawa United as the Lafayette-based team had been relegated owing to a defeat to Kwara United. In Group B, defending champions Rivers United beat Bayelsa United. Sunshine Stars beat Niger Tornadoes at home, while Wiki Tourists thrashed Abia Warriors 4-0. In England, Arsenal FC has kept their Premier League title race alive as Martin Odegaard, the Norwegian strike, and Fabian Schär's own goal beat Newcastle United 2-0 this evening to close to within 1 point of leaders Manchester City. City have a game in hand on top of their slender lead though, but the Gunners are refusing to give up the fight in their hunt for a first league title in 19 years. West Ham United beat Manchester United 1-0 to end a run of 3 consecutive defeats and take a huge step towards Premier League safety. Meanwhile, in the league table, the defending champions City have 82 points from 34 league games, and they are closely trailed by the Gunners, who are on 81 points, having played 35 games. Newcastle United are third on 65 points from 34 matches. And the main news again. Over 800 Nigerians today returned to Abuja after their successful evacuation from war-torn Sudan. The evacuees, mostly students, were brought back in 3 different flights on Sunday. The MAX airplane crash-landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja after its tire burst into flames shortly after taking off from Yola in Adamawa State. And the United Nations nuclear watchdog has warned that a severe nuclear accident could occur as Russia evacuates a town near contested Zaporizhzhia power plant. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Do have a good night.